Thank you. Thanks for asking me for Barclay. But I do feel a bit nervous now. Yeah. So I really like giving talks. It's not the actual giving the talk, it's the preparation really, because you have to reflect, and it's really helpful, isn't it? So that's what I find anyway. So yeah, I first met Charatna back in 2011 when I went along to the Birmingham Buddhist Centre. And yeah, I wasn't in a good place at all at the time. Life was quite difficult. I wasn't in a good place mentally anyway. And I do remember going into the centre. Someone I worked with suggested we go along and learn to meditate. So I went along to the centre, and it's really big and full of people. It's like, whoa. And what I used to do is rush in, grab a cup of tea and hide in the corner. So, but when I first went there, I did feel a connection with people. It's interesting, isn't it, when you first go along? And yeah, and noticing that people were vegan, because at that time I didn't really ever come across vegans. You know, we were the weird lettuce-eating people. So it was lovely to meet people that, you know, I felt had some connection with. So, and I kept going along for about, I did the intro course, and yeah. And I think I had some quite interesting teachers, because my first teacher was Sarah Hart and Aloka Vera, and then my second teacher was Ashvajit and Aloka Vera. So yeah, so yeah, I went along there for about a year, and then we moved to Mid Wales. So I live, if any of you know it, near Raider, sort of about 12 miles south of Newtown. So when I moved there, I realised that I had no contact with the sangha, and you know, it really was important to me. I'd got something from going to Birmingham. There was something about it, and I just kept going. I couldn't say what it was at that time, but I just felt something. And I had a real response to the Rupa in Birmingham, because it's it's lovely Rupa, it's huge. And I feel real response to that. So I felt I wanted to keep going, but at the time, you know, I knew of Shrewsbury, but I work in Llandrindod, Wells, and I worked it out today, and it's a 100-mile round trip to come from Llandrindod and go home. So Wednesdays are just not doable, really, on a regular basis. I did catch the train today, and it was very slow, but granted, that's Wales 20 plenty, if you've heard of it. So it did feel a bit like that. So yes, so yeah, and you know, I just wanted to do more. So yeah, I did, and I kept meditating on my own because I found it really beneficial. So I kept meditating, but I still had this pull. I wanted to be with other Buddhists. And yeah, so I was still on this quest really to practice, and I was aware then of Taraloka, and I went along to a retreat at Taraloka, a newcomers one in 2014, and then I went back a few years later, and Marjorie Davey then told me that Marjorie City was running a group in West Wales, so I started going there in 2017. I think that's right, Steve. I'm sure you'll correct me. He's nodding. So yeah, and the difference is with Aberystwyth, for those of you who don't know, it's just we meet in the Quaker meeting hall, and it's a small group. But when I went in there, it was just so friendly, and I just loved it. You know, people were just so welcoming and friendly, and it was just really, it was great. And I quickly got to know everyone, because we always have because we go there for a day, a sort of sangha day once a month. So we have a shared lunch, which is, I know Annie likes our shared lunches. And they're sort of, yeah, really good. And you get to know people, and, you know, so that was really good. So I've never really been someone that has close friends, or even friends, really. I've grown up, you know, to be quite self-sufficient. You know, I had friends I did things with. I used to do a lot of kayaking when I was younger. So I went to a canoe club, a cycle club. But these, of course, these are groups, really. And once you're stop doing the activity, you don't keep the friends. So yeah, I have learned to be completely self-sufficient. I always keep people at arm's length. I always feel like I wear armour when I've got my armour on, and I don't let people in. Don't let them. But when I have, it's tended not to go well. So I was brought up, so my conditioning is to keep myself, don't tell people, don't let people know what's going on. So I've been very good at protecting myself. But this has changed. It has changed, particularly since training for ordination, since asking for ordination. So that I asked about 4 years ago. So being in Mitra study groups and going on retreat and being in groups generally and developing friendships has been really helpful. But I found groups really difficult at first. I just couldn't quite work them out. I thought, well, I didn't sign up for therapy. Why are we sitting here doing all this? Checking in, and that's how it felt at first. I think you probably recognise that from when I first came along. But anyway, yeah. So being part of the sangha, both in West Wales and here in Shrewsbury, because I do Mitra study here and I've got TFA group here. I've experienced real kindness and love, all those really warm, genuine hugs, they make you feel loved, and the kindness makes you feel seen and valued. So I've also experienced spiritual friendship as well. I feel really supported by the order members in my cooler. They genuinely want the best for me. Hi, Basara. And also my TFO Mitras are also really supportive, but not always in a direct way. For example, my friend Annie is very good at making me question my views, or just helps me to reflect on what I say. You do, like you were saying, I've said things, but it does make a difference because you just go away and you think about things, don't you? So, so it's just sowing those seeds, really, isn't it? So, but it's also, I've also found it really helpful when I'm reacting to someone in the sangha. And I have to try and understand why I'm reacting and how to resolve any disagreements. It'd be lovely to think there were no disagreements. But I do it feels funny saying this now because there's a lot of men in the audience, but I do tend to react to men, particularly if they tell me what to do or undermine me in any way. So my need is to feel valued, be seen and heard. So if my opinion is not valued or dismissed, I just go back into that defence mode and my armour comes up. And it's just conditioning, really. And I think a lot of women in my age will understand this. We've been put down a lot by men, and your opinion's been dismissed, or just not taken into account. Really, and I've got loads of experiences, so I think I tend to anticipate that. So particularly with men, if they're big, where's Steve now? If they're tall, if they're tall, and so I mean, Steve knows I'm going to mention this, but so in the early days, in going to ABBA, Steve and I would be working on something together, but Steve would quite often have his work head or business head on, and he'd be wanting to getting things done efficiently and quickly and just get on with it. And of course, that I tended to react to that because this bit that I felt I wasn't being listened to or wasn't being heard. It wasn't Steve, it's just the way I react, really. So this was really helpful for me to be able to look at why I was reacting and look at, peel back the layers, look at the fear which was driving me and my interactions with men. So I had a bit of better understanding. It's just really helpful to learn from it. So thank you, Steve. Yeah, I mean, the difficulty with me, I have very little interactions with men these days because we're always in women-only groups. There aren't. I work in the NHS, and it's all nurses I work with. There aren't, you know, all women, so I don't come into contact with men now. So I don't have opportunities to practice my new skills. So there we go. And so, in what feels to be quite a short time, I've noticed a real change in the way I behave. I don't react as much as I used to, and now I notice when I am, and yeah, so it does help. So I'd really like to thank my friends in Mitchell Study and my TFO buddies for future interactions, which will provide learning opportunities. And the other thing, my connection with Sangha is also at Taraloka. So when I can, I'll go and volunteer at Taraloka and cook, or volunteer to organise, because this again gives me an opportunity, and I just love it really, just to be with my Sangha friends. Yeah. So to sum up, the Sangha provides me with good friendships, caring and kind people that make me feel valued and loved. The Sangha allows me to be myself, be open, and be able to be seen. And I think that's your phrase, to be seen, isn't it? So, and provides me with spiritual friends who support me on the path and help me to learn about myself by challenging me, and also by just sowing seeds. And the other thing that's really helpful is the Metta Bhavana. Just allows me to be kind to myself, develop metta for anyone that I may have difficulties with, or reacting to things I may have said or done. So at this point, I definitely feel the Sangha jaw is really important to me.
Thank you, Kasharaj. And thank you, Jackie, actually, because I was, when I was told I was with Jackie, I said, I don't know if I know who Jackie is. And I thought, is she part of this Sangha? And I really should know who Jackie is. But then Steve said, Steve is in my GFR group, said, no, she's from West Wales, so I feel better that but it was really good to hear you speak and to get a sense of who you are. And we would have been in Birmingham around the same time, so maybe we've been in the same room at some point. Okay. So yeah, so the topic, what is this? What does the Sangha mean to us? It's quite, oh, blimey, I mean, it's big. It's a big area. So I'm just going to try and focus on some specific things that are personal to me, really. I think the first thing is that, you know, in a sense, you can look at the Sangha and say, well, it's just another group of friendships. There are people that connect with one another, and there's lots of different friendship groups in society, and it's just another one of those. I don't think that's the case. You'd be pleased to know. I think what I want to try and sort of tease out is how the Sangha and the relationships within it, or the Sangha at its best, how that differs from the normal everyday social groups that exist in society. So I'll try and touch on that and talk about it from personal experience, really. And when I first started thinking about this, I was thinking about kind of what the friendships that I've had over the years, what has been the basis for them? Why did I become friends with certain people? Because it's kind of, in a sense, it's like, do you ever stop and think, why am I friends with these people, these individuals? And I think certainly when I was younger, a lot of it was just about shared interests, having the same interests. You know, someone supports the same football team as you, or they like the same music, or when I was in my teens, there were people I used to go clubbing with. So you've got that basis of shared experience. And that's good in a sense that, you know, having shared experiences and being able to reminisce about all the stuff you've done together and share those good times, it is a basis for friendship without a shadow of a doubt. But what I've noticed over the years with that is that if you're, with some of those friendships, if you took the interest away, is there much left there? Because when you've got a shared interest, it can kind of, I've still got friends to this day that every time I see them, I just talk about football with them. And that's fine, it's fun. But I actually don't know much about them as a person. I don't know much about the depth. So those kind of friendships, although they can be, they're very common, they don't necessarily go beyond the surface level if you're not careful. Another type of friendship really is the ones that are just based on that alchemy that happens between two people when you just come across someone that has got a very similar personality to you. I think a big one is if they've got the same sense of humor as me. That really goes a long way. If you laugh about the same stuff, you can really bond over that kind of thing. And if someone, you are in the same place on extroversion, introversion, and something happens and you become friends, and those friendships are really useful as well. And we've all got those. But again, you don't necessarily get to know people purely through just getting along with them, if you know what I mean. You can knock around in friendships, in my experience, where you kind of, we have a laugh and we share this, that, the other, but you don't necessarily know what makes that person tick. So sort of third type of friendship, and obviously these aren't mutually exclusive groups, a lot of friendships are made up of lots of different things, but the third one is spiritual friendships that we talk about here. And it got me thinking, what do we mean by a spiritual friendship? Because it isn't just my friend happens to be a Buddhist, although that might be what will happen for many of us. That isn't necessarily what it's about. So having shared ideals. So I know that Bhante talked about this in the sense that, other members of the spiritual community are trying to evolve. I think that was the term you would use, trying to evolve. And so we know that we're not just victims of what goes on in life, but we've got a chance to, respond in a creative way and to develop ourselves in a spiritual sense. So we come across other people. Everyone here tonight is going to be in that group, I think, at our best anyway. That's what we're trying to do. So we've got an understanding of Praticca Samuppada. We understand that actions have consequences, and that's kind of, okay, good. So we've got that basis, and then when it comes to evolving, it seems like there's kind of a bit of a dichotomy with it, really, because you can only do it for yourself, really, can't you? You're responsible for your own spiritual progress, but you can't do it alone, or very few people can do it alone. I mean, I don't think I've met anyone that would say that they could enjoy a fruitful spiritual life without being with other people in a sangha. Maybe some very exceptional people, but I'm certainly not one of them. So it's kind of like, you're kind of responsible for your own spiritual progress, but you can't do it without other people. So that means the sangha is absolutely pivotal and central to everything. And we've all heard, it's been mentioned in this room many times, but we've all heard the time when Ananda asked the Buddha whether spiritual friendship was half of the spiritual life, and his response was, "No, Ananda, it's the whole of the spiritual life." I think I've heard lots of people say that, but we can't hear that enough, because it just shows how central the sangha is, and Bhante was always very, very clear, it seems to me, to make sure that was a key emphasis for our movement. Because it isn't always like that. I mean, before I went along to Birmingham Buddhist Centre for the first time, I went along to another Buddhist group in Birmingham. There didn't seem to be a sangha bit. It was just kind of, you did a meditation, you had a quiet cup of tea and then went along. There wasn't really any potential to connect with other people. So yeah, that was, I realised I needed that, it's fair to say. And going along to Birmingham Buddhist Centre was the first time I fully realised that, I think. Well, partly realised it. I'll come on to that. So what is a spiritual friendship then? Because, it's a bit of the word is a little bit sort of nebulous. What does it actually mean at its best? So I'm going to just talk about some things that I've experienced in my GFR group that Akasha Raja talked about, because I feel very lucky to be in my GFR group. I don't want to big up Steve's ego too much, but Steve is in my GFR group, he's online. The other two guys aren't here tonight, but we've got just an incredibly solid and supportive group. So I'm going to talk from the experience of my GFR group. So the first thing is, to make it work, the basis is you've got to meet regularly. Now, I know it seems to me like you'll hear people, I often hear people say, "Oh, I've got a Facebook friend," or "I've got an Insta friend," or "I've got a friend that I see every 6 months," or whatever. And it's very hard, I think, to sustain deep, meaningful friendships if you don't see people regularly. Just because people, you can't go below the surface if you're not seeing people very often, very rarely anyway. So having a regular meeting point to make it time of meeting is really important. And right from the beginning of the GFR group, they basically said, when I'm signing up, we meet every week. We meet for 2 hours. It's online because Steve's over in West Wales, but we made that work. We can, the structure of it, everything is there. And we don't miss it unless we've got a good reason. I had a semi-good reason recently, which Steve won't be able to mention because we haven't got this. I sort of skived off the other week, but otherwise, none of us do that very often. It's a group where we're always there for those 2 hours, and we also try to meet in person where we can, whether it's on a retreat or for the last couple of years, we've just been away, the three well, there was 5 of us in the group at one point, just go away for the weekend and just do life stories and just, really get to know one another as deeply as we can. So the first thing is time, having time and spending time regularly together. The second factor, I think, is openness. The willingness to not wear a mask, but to be really open. And the structure, the way we do it is that, sort of broadly speaking, we have a check-in, what have you been doing the previous week, and then we have a confession practice. And on the first evening I joined the call, I'd never done a confession practice before, and I didn't know how that was going to work. And I was just kind of like stunned by how open people were. And I hadn't experienced that with men before. I hadn't experienced men talking about things that they are potentially ashamed of, or it might be, it could be anything. It's unskillful acts they've committed. Just talk about it openly. I was really taken aback by that. And seeing people be open like that, it leads to trust, because you can tell when people are being authentic and when they're putting their cards on the table. So a third factor in that is the development of trust that comes through people being open with one another. Because I don't think often friendships aren't open in my experience. A lot of them are kind of, there's always a bit of a game with some friendships, about what you'll share and what you won't. So that blew me away, the confession practice. And I'm still it's been transformative for me, that practice, as much for the other guys in the group, really, because they're all, they're all out there. They put themselves out there. So once you've got that level of trust, then the next thing that comes on the back of that, I think, is that you can afford to be vulnerable as well. Men don't do vulnerability very well, in my experience. It's kind of, there are certain things that men, won't necessarily be upfront about, whether it's to do with, relationships, sex, career, money, a bit of machismo there, or wanting to portray yourself in a positive light. I've had that with so many friendships, and I've been party to it myself. You're making yourself look a bit better than you are in the interactions you are, particularly with other men. And my sense often that women are probably often a bit more able to be vulnerable with their friends. So having vulnerability amongst men, again, that was kind of a total new thing to me. I hadn't really experienced it, even with men that I've known for 20 odd years. I've been in this group for 2.5 years, and I know more about them, and I get a better sense of who they are than people I've known for 20 years, or even in some cases, probably even members of my own family, actually. Even my own dad, who's someone who really does keep his cards close to his chest. So I just got so much appreciation for that, just that sort of, I'm going to be who I am. I'm going to be authentic, and I'm going to be vulnerable. Another really key aspect of it is the ability to laugh at one another, with one another. It's like these friendships have to be enjoyable if they're going to be long-term sustainable friendships. You have to enjoy it. And I think we do have a lot of laughs in our group. At the start of every call, there's always some banter. It's usually Darren kicking up about someone who's not in this one. Darren's great at just bantering and getting people to open up. He's got that character, Obviously, there's certain lines you never cross. If he mentions my bald patch, he's not going to. That'll be the last time. Yeah, but there is quite a lot of sort of banter in our group. And I remember reading about the Dalai Lama, talking about meeting with these other senior lamas and just how much fun they have. They're ribbing one another, and and I've seen some stuff on YouTube of the way they kind of tease one another. And that fun aspect of friendship is just really, really key. It's not like we sit there and try to be very pious and talk about, that unskillfulness of what we've done that previous week. A lot of it is light, and it should be, I think. We're all fallible human beings. We can have a laugh at one another. But there's a counter side to that as well, because sometimes it's not fun. And sometimes people are in a not a particularly good place. We've all been through highs and lows in my time in that group. And sometimes, you don't enjoy it as much because someone's in a difficult place. But that's where loyalty is key, isn't it? Because you've got yes, you want to enjoy your friendships, but sometimes they're not enjoyable because life throws things at us, and we're not in a good place. And just as spiritual friends, we've got to be loyal to one another through the thick and thin. And I really do get a sense of that with that GFR group. It doesn't matter where you are or what you confess. It's there. It's solid because we all want the same thing. We're all supporting one another. And I think that's kind of the fruition. That's the aim of the group. When you get to a point where you're as interested in the happiness of the other people as you are yourself. If someone has a success of some description, or they have a breakthrough or an insight, or hopefully, when people get asked for ordination, that you're going to have a well of joy for them, rather than what can happen in friendships is an element of competition there. I think it certainly has been in mine in younger days, in my 20s. There's an element of competition in the friendship, and that isn't true friendship in a sense. If there's competition there, you want the best for your friends, and they want the best for you. It doesn't. I'm not saying that every time someone has a success, you feel as sort of as good about it as if it happens to you. That's probably not realistic, because we do have egos and stuff. But I do get this is the nearest I've ever experienced that in the GFR group. Keep an eye on the time, because it's 1:15. Okay. I think that it's worth mentioning. Another point actually comes to mind is the thing around being an individual, because Bhante obviously was very key. I've used the term group a lot. We've all used the term group a lot, but Bhante was very clear on the term group as being not really what a community of spiritual friends is. It's not really a group, because we don't have. It's not like sort of sitting under the flag, is it, or supporting a football team like I do. It's where you've just got like a common thing, and you bond over the same stuff. We should all be able to be individuals in the context of a spiritual, in a sangha, not individualists, but individuals, confident to be who we are, in the sense that we're not going to be judged, and we don't have to conform to the personalities or the characters in the rest of the group. At its best, if you can be being a true individual with people that may have different personalities or different interests to you, that's real. That's a real friendship, I think, or a group of friends. So just very, very fortunate. I think that it's worth mentioning that certainly looking back, sometimes you can have difficulties and you can have conflicts. I don't think I've experienced that in our GFR group, really. In the time we've been together, I don't think there's been any significant conflict there. Although, if we lived together for a couple of months, I'm pretty sure there'd be the potential for conflict there. So you don't say that, it's pretty hard to get into conflict in a sense, but I think what we would all do if conflict comes up in the group, the first thing you can do as a Buddhist, I think if conflict comes up, you can only kind of look at your own response to it. Because it's very easy to just think, I've been slighted by this person and they are wrong. And I'm perfectly within my rights to be angry at them because they're wrong. And I've done that many, many times, and will do again in the future. But when in our GFR group, I think if any potential for that comes up, I think people will look at themselves in terms of how they can respond to the situation, rather than just blaming X person for it. Even if you can objectively say that the other person is at fault, you're not going to resolve it with that sort of approach, are you? So taking personal responsibility if a conflict arises, for saying, all I can do is look after my own responses to it. And, be the person that offers the olive branch, which is really scary, isn't it? If you've had a bust up with someone, you say, give the olive branch out there and say, let's just talk this through. And I know there's been many instances of that happening in our sangha, and that's just great, because people have stronger relationships on the back of those meetings. That's a sign of a good functioning sangha if people can do that to deal with their differences. Yeah, we've all got our own conditioning, as you say, and it's kind of it's so easy, isn't it, just to kind of not necessarily see the conditioning in yourself, or not even to understand it in other people, and just think that's wrong, or I've done that so many times. That's not right, or why is so and so getting upset about this? But we don't know the other person's conditioning quite often. And we don't often know our own. We don't always know our own, I think it's fair to say. Sometimes we don't know why we respond in the way we do. So there's a whole working ground around dealing with difficulties. But yeah, I hope I've kind of, I mean, I've been a bit sort of stream of consciousness with this in a sense, because I just wanted to talk a little bit about my own experience in this GFR group. But the fact is, we've all got the opportunities to have these. It doesn't matter whether you've asked for ordination or not. You don't have to have asked for ordination in order to be in spiritual friendships with other people. You don't even have to be a mitra. You know, as long all you need to do is to put yourself out there to find people that are wanting to evolve in the way you are, and just spend time with them, and then just aim to be open. And I think this stuff happens organically, and it is beautiful when it does happen. I don't think I'd experienced it properly until these past couple of years, really, in that group, and maybe with individual people, but not amongst a group of other men. So I just feel very, very fortunate, and I'm sure that all of us have got the potential to do that, and there are lots of other groups that exist just like that. So we're lucky. Let's make the most of it. Yeah, that's me.